In all of my research in the past decade, I have become convinced that the most dangerous thing in the world is not governments, it's not standing armies or tanks and planes and bombs, it's not disease and famine. It's what I call the illusion of knowledge. Now, the illusion of knowledge is not just having factually inaccurate information or just being ignorant about something. It's specifically thinking that you know what you're talking about while actually being wrong. It's thinking that you accurately grasp reality while actually being deluded. The reason this is so dangerous is because ideas drive all of human actions. Humans act in accordance with their ideas always. And therefore, when people's ideas are wrong, their actions can sometimes be very dangerous. The areas which you see the great danger of inaccurate ideas and the illusions of knowledge are in two places: governments and academia. Governments are kind of the place where bad ideas result in human misery. All of these people in government have very powerful tools at their disposal for changing how the world works and changing how society functions. They can raise taxes and lower taxes and distribute resources to various places in the economy. And if they get their ideas wrong, it can result in some pretty ugly circumstances. So for example, take something very simple like the minimum wage. There are tons of politicians out there who certainly think that raising the minimum wage is good for people who are making the minimum wage and good for people that are poor in society. Factually speaking, this is not true. The minimum wage hurts those who it's designed to help. I'm not going to make the case for it here, but it's a pretty straightforward economic argument that the minimum wage is the poor person's worst enemy. You have a bunch of people who may have great intentions in Washington, D.C., who set up systems in society that actively suppress, aggressively suppress the well-being of the worst among us. And that's only just a minor example. Take something that has been absolutely catastrophic: the banning of DDT. DDT was an insecticide that was used many decades ago to kill mosquitoes because mosquitoes carry malaria, which kills hundreds of millions of people. There was a book that was written many years ago called Silent Spring, which made the case that, DDT is affecting the environment. It's weakening the shells of all these birds, and it's going to throw out our ecosystem. It's going to make it all out of whack, and then it's going to cause all this devastation. Now, the well-intentioned regulators wound up banning DDT, and as a direct result of that, it's likely that tens of millions of Africans have died because of the ban on DDT because it was such an effective insecticide. Many years later, we find out that Silent Spring was a bunch of crap. It was a very shoddily put together book by a journalist that's largely been discredited at this point. It is a tragedy, and it only happened because of the illusion of knowledge. People who thought they understood what they were talking about, and they acted on those beliefs, and it resulted in catastrophe. The greatest example of the illusion of knowledge leading to misery has got to be the Soviet Union, which existed for decades on the premise that society needs to be planned out by the intellectuals, by those who know what they're talking about, by the experts. And that society was so poorly planned out because of the illusion of knowledge that you had tens of millions of people starving to death. There was not enough food in the Soviet Union because of the illusion of knowledge, of people thinking they know how to plan out a society, thinking they know more than the marketplace, thought that they had all the information necessary to make these conclusions, structure their society in such a way, it led towards devastation. Now, that exact principle that you saw in the Soviet Union so profoundly and horribly illustrated is precisely the same phenomena that you see with every government regulation. It's people that think they know what they're talking about, but actually don't, and it makes all of us worse off. You have the politicians who think that they know what they're talking about and they don't. But there's this sinister relationship between the politicians and the academics. The academics, the intelligentsia, who has an incentive to act like they are the experts and know how to plan out society. It's not the legislators acting on their own whims. It's them being informed by the experts in intelligentsia, which is why there's this very intimate relationship between higher ed and government, that the people who think that the way that the world should work is you work your way up through academia, you discover all this knowledge about how the world works, and then you go plan out society, and the result is universally devastation. The same problem plagues not just intelligentsia, but also fields like the martial arts, of which I've been involved for over a decade. You have the vast majority of martial arts styles. They go around thinking that they understand what they're talking about and thinking that they can defend themselves. The karate master, the tai chi master, the aikido practitioner. But in reality, they don't. They have fallen for the illusion of knowledge. And you take the actually objectively true principles that you discover in something like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or grappling styles, and you can demonstrate over and over that these martial arts Aikido practitioners don't actually know what they're talking about. And this is a tragedy because they have tens of thousands of students all around the globe who all share in this mutual bubble of delusion. And again, it's not just that their ideas are factually inaccurate. That's innocent enough, right? If I'm trying to learn something and somebody tells me I'm wrong, well, that's great. I just adjust my beliefs. But if somebody tells me I'm wrong and I think, no, I know what I'm talking about, but I actually don't, that's the problem. That's the illusion of knowledge. It's not being factually inaccurate. It's thinking that you know what you're talking about when you actually don't, and then all of the actions which follow from that. This is one more very compelling reason for political anarchism. We don't need a central government, period. Society does not need to operate that way. People are operating under the assumption that, oh yes, well, you have to have somebody plan out the economy. You have to have some monopolized structure of the court system and the legal system. No. This is the illusion of knowledge. People think that society has to operate this way. It doesn't. Which is a little bit scary when you think about it, because who is going to be drawn into the government, into academia, into the elite that think they understand how the world works? Well, it's those people who have a tendency towards, dare I call it, intellectual hubris. Those people who are most susceptible to the illusion of knowledge and thinking they know more than they do. Those are precisely the people who are going to try to plan out society, and the people who are going to try to get up the echelon of higher education to act like their opinion is somehow on a different level than us common folks. And of course, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that average Joes know how to plan out society better than the central planners do. I'm saying there should be no central planners because everybody is ignorant about how 95% of society works. We can have just little tiny snippets about how the world works. We learn sound economics, and the overwhelming message that you get when you learn sound economics is hands off, laissez-faire, let it operate. You don't need the regulators to intervene and ruin things. And like I said at the beginning of this video, the illusion of knowledge is much more dangerous than tanks and planes, because those tanks and planes are operated by individuals with a certain set of beliefs. You have the illusion of knowledge filter all the way from the very top of the central planners in society and in the military, all the way down to the very bottom, to the foot soldiers that also think that they're doing something good for the world. They sincerely think they're making the world a better place, or that they're defending freedom, or these things. They're tricked. They're pawns in a very dark chess game, and they don't even realize it. And so guns by themselves and bombs by themselves are not going to explode by themselves. People aren't going to be shooting each other by themselves. It requires the ideas. And to be honest, I don't fear some foreign soldier that has an open mind. If he's open to persuasion and realizes that, oh, hey man, maybe the world doesn't work the way I thought, and maybe everybody outside of my country isn't a savage that I need to shoot. Well, that's great. He's going to be persuaded by the truth. What I fear is those soldiers who have the illusion of knowledge, who think that they know what they're talking about, and their leaders think they know what they're talking about, and they wage these crusades throughout the planet based on the illusion of knowledge. So that illusion of knowledge is precisely the same thing from the soldier to the central planner and the regulator and the liberal that wants the welfare programs and wants the raise in the minimum wage and doesn't understand the real world effects of those things. It's the same thing with a busybody neighbor that sees you smoking a cigarette and pokes his nose into your life and thinks that he knows how to run your life better than you do. That problem of thinking that you know more than you actually do has got to be one of the biggest issues in all of human existence.